To start off by saying what we're going to do today before I introduce my incredible guest that I'm just so honored to have here. What we're going to do today is we're going to sort of have a pretty casual conversation. We don't have a script. We don't have a massive presentation. It's going to be kind of a little bit more like a podcast. But I couldn't help but take this opportunity when Marilee and I were speaking about other things, because what's going on in the market and in real estate in the world, mindset is going to be everything for people to be able to cross that bridge to be successful in the emerging world. And when Marilee agreed to do this with me, I was just over the moon excited. So what we're going to do is we're going to give her lots of time to speak about her field of work. I'm going to talk a little bit about why her field of work is so important to me. And then we're going to tie it all together with how does mindset work, Marilee's area of expertise, and real estate, my area of expertise, come together to be able to give you something to really knock it out of the park this fall and this year and for the rest of your career. So I think we have a really, really cool day set up for us. So Marilee is, wow, just, such a force for me. I always want to talk about like the effect she had on me, but that's not really fair. So Marilee is a internationally renowned best-selling author for her book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And she has changed more lives than anybody I can ever even imagine through her work. But her work, that is just sort of one piece of her work. She is the CEO of the Inquiry Institute. She'll talk more about that. She has a doctorate in clinical psychology and 25 years of experience, which gives her far more than the requisite 10,000 hours required to be a phenomenal outlier in this area. She studied under some of the most influential thinkers in psychology. I just can't, believe how envious I am of her for the opportunities she's had or the opportunities that she's created for herself. She is the creator of the phrase question thinking, which we're going to learn a lot about today. And the list goes on. But importantly, Marilee has really brought this idea of breakthrough sustainable change to massive, massive numbers of individuals and organizations that has less an impact on our world. And this is, where I get really, really excited about her. She saved my life back probably about 15 years ago. I'll tell you that story. But right now, I'd like to hand the baton over to Marilee to have her tell us a little bit about herself. So thank you so much for being here, Marilee.
And it's so much fun and a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, Suze, our conversations in preparation have really been fun and interesting. And you got me all excited about realtors and your world and how this work can make an impact in it, which is exciting to me and also very understandable for me because it makes an impact in so many different ways in so many people's lives. I do want to say to all of you that what we're going to cover today, although it's going to be in the context of what you do professionally as realtors, also is deeply applicable to your personal lives. So whether your biggest focus is professional or perhaps your biggest focus or interest is personal, the same material will make a difference for you. And I can promise you that. And I think when you hear Sue's story and some of the stories I'm going to share with you, that will make more sense to you. I do know that some of you have read Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. Thank you for that. For those of you who have not, it's perfectly okay. You'll get whatever you need here. And just a little bit of background, as Sue said. So I don't live in Canada, everybody, but I do love Canada. And we spend a lot of time there. And I've spent a lot of time in Toronto and have enjoyed it tremendously. I do live in New Jersey, which is near New York, with my husband and 2 dogs, and you'll appreciate this, and my office and my Zoom, because it feels like I spend the most of my life these days on Zoom. And so here we are again. The work that we do at Inquiry Institute, we obviously do podcasts and webinars like this. We provide courses that deepen the material for people and their ways to apply it. We work with organizations and government agencies, both in the US and Canada and internationally, which is very exciting to see how this work makes a difference basically everywhere. The book is in 23 or 24 languages. And I'm sure, and Suze was implying this, it's also a bestseller. So I know that it's having an impact like that because people read it and they pass it along. And I should also say to you that I absolutely adore questions and I adore curiosity and I adore what's possible when we really understand mindset and what to do about it and how to manage it and how to get ourselves in the place where we want to be so we can be most present, most engaged, and most successful, both professionally and personally. So I'll have a lot more to say later, but that's for openers.
Thank you so much, Marilee. A really nice introduction there. And she said, you know, Marilee was mentioning she worked with some organizations. Guys, these aren't like any organizations. She's like NASA, Johnson and Johnson. She just spoke at the Global Forum in Barcelona, right? This is a woman who's like out there making a difference and spreading this impact far and wide through powerful people. So thank you for that. And, you know, the emerging future is what we're all preparing for. And so this is just so timely for that. So I'm going to get a little vulnerable here. I'm going to tell you my story. I'll try to keep it quick because I don't want to make this about me. But I think some of these threads that I'm talking about might hit some of you, particularly now as you're having some challenges. And so I grew up in a very judgmental family. I mean, so judgmental that, you know, and of course you don't know it when you're growing up because it's all you know. And my father and the other academics in my family truly believed that they were significantly smarter than everybody else, and everybody else were idiots. And as a kid, you grow up with that and you think that's normal and you're kind of miserable, right? Because you're walking around and you're being judgmental and you don't really like people and people don't really like you. But, you know, you become incredibly successful because you're trying to prove something. You got to prove to everybody that you're awesome, right? Because you really believe you're awesome because you're judgmental. And so I had this life that I was really busy and I was like, you know, racing sailboats and I was selling real estate and I was raising my kid and I was doing a lot of stuff and I was really busy and I was really miserable. And then I kind of get to a point where I was like, there must be more. There must be more to life than this. And I went to coaching school to become a coach. And my coach mentor, my coach instructor at the time, who became my coach mentor, introduced me to Marilee's work in an incredibly meaningful and organic way. And it's like this massive light bulb went off for me, like massive, and everything changed. Change your questions, change your life isn't a catchphrase. Change your questions, change your life can actually be a 180-degree pivot. And what occurred for me was just a monumental reorganizing of my entire soul, where I started to really like people. And people started to really like me, which was the coolest thing. And, you know, it was so funny. I was trying to get out of real estate at the time. I was going to retire from real estate. I was going to open an adventure lodge that helped kids with diabetes interact with their challenges better, which is why I was going to coaching school. I was also taking nutrition courses, et cetera. And, you know, it was so weird because I was still in real estate and my volume doubled while I was full-time at U of T at the Adler School doing the coaching program, because everybody really liked me because of this learner or curious mindset and this lack of judgment. And my soul was just so darn full with happiness. And I'd never experienced that self-love or love of the world or love of others. And it totally changed my life, which has led me on this journey of the last 15 years where you guys know me and for what I do and the raw sort of authentic stuff I bring to you guys, which I think has been life-changing for a lot of you guys. So, you know, this is an opportunity for me to really thank Marilee for that, because that's been amazing. But also I want to spread this word because the world is changing so darn fast and in directions that none of us really know, that I just know that the work that Marilee brings to us is critical to us being a successful and impactful part of our emerging world. So I wanted to share all of that with you. And now I really want to focus on Marilee's work. She's got some stories and some exercises and some stuff that's, you know, actually like going to help you guys. This is not a sales pitch hour. This is let's do some mindset work. And so Marilee, please take over. I might interrupt once in a while just because I get so excited, but I'll try to leave the entire floor to you.
Well, it'll be just like our conversations, right, Suze? So
Absolutely.
before I get into anything, I do want to comment on what you just said, Suze. Because first of all, that story is very moving to me. It's not surprising because I've heard it before in different versions. And what I particularly love about your story is that it was a what you call a quantum change. It was very quick and it was hugely significant and it leveraged everything in your life. And then what's really beautiful is it impacted people beyond you. And also what I love is that your own sales, your own professional success as a realtor doubled without you putting in a lot of effort, simply because you showed up differently for people and they liked you and they trusted you. And I thought some about real estate, Sue, since we've been talking, because it's not my world, but I've learned a lot from you already. And I know that people think that real estate is sort of like a sales business, and in a way it is. But I also think of it as a service profession, because what you're really doing is serving people and families and working with them to make their lives happier and better. And I think that when you have that kind of orientation, they trust you. Not only will they trust you and stay with you, but they'll also refer other people to you simply because of who you're being, how you show up, and your ability to really engage and be with them. And I think that's, in a nutshell, part of what, maybe basically, what Suze has been sharing with you all these years and why she shared Change Your Questions. Because at the end of the day, it's really more about who you're being than what you're doing that speaks loudly to people and also speaks to yourself.
This is cool. I'm just gonna jump in for 1 second, Marilee.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize the importance of this, you guys. So what Marilee's saying is absolutely true. You guys all know it. You're in the service business, and who we are is more important than what we do and what we bring to people. But I wanted to just bring a little bit of my real estate expertise here. As technology gets more and more of a hook into our business, the technology, AI can do 60% of what realtors do. They can do the contracts, they can do the numbers, they can do the data. And so what has become absolutely essential is what I'm starting to call the final mile, which is the humanness. It's this stuff. That's what agents will bring to the transaction. And transactions can't happen without it. So as you develop this skill, it reinforces your value and your essential necessity of you as a realtor as the world moves towards AI. So I just wanted to add that in, and it's back over to you, Marilee.
Well, that's really a great comment. I think it also could infuse a little bit of, oh my gosh, she's right. Or, oh my gosh, what about AI? Or, oh my gosh, really? And let's be real. How much the world has changed in the last 3 years, particularly since the pandemic, how it's changed everything, how it's made life more uncertain, how it's made it harder to predict anything. And that's the reality we all live with. So what do we do with that? We can't alter the circumstances around us, but where we do have power is with ourselves, who we are with ourselves and with others. And the better we get at that, the more skillful and also the more authentic, the more we're able to meet the challenges as they occur. I made up this saying called, when I was actually giving a keynote in another kind of global context, and people were talking about the multiple global challenges, the pandemic. This was before Ukraine, but now we could say Ukraine, we could go financially. So what do we have left? Like what I said, it's us. And so the phrase was, the antidote to uncertainty is inquiry. And what I'll say to you all is the antidote to uncertainty is learner inquiry, because it's the mindset that we're in and our ability to manage our mindset and to get ourselves back on a track that is something that's positive and useful and proactive and genuine and generative. That's what's going to make the difference. And I think it really is the big differentiator. And if every real estate person in Canada knew that, then Suze, you would not be able to service them all. But the good news is those of you who do, you're going to have a competitive advantage. And I think you could think of mindset and also learner questioning as a competitive advantage, as well as something that makes your life and other people's lives better. Would you, before I go on, Suze?
Yeah, I mean, I think what, Marilee, I love it. I mean, I'm just sitting here soaking it in. It's so good. But the competitive advantage, I think it goes even further than that. I think we all know that AI is going to displace massive numbers of lawyers, accountants, and probably realtors. And it's the thing we don't want to say. It's the elephant in the room. So I think it's not just a competitive advantage. I think it's an essential to be part of the realtors that survive the monumental changes coming in the coming months and years. And I think it's that big. I think anyone who doesn't do it, anyone who stays like tech, they're gonna get overwhelmed. So it's yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun for those of us that really dig in and do it. And it's going to be really not fun for the people who stick with what they think they already know. So yeah, thanks, Marilee.
Oh, you're welcome, Suze. So you'll have business for the next 100 years, huh?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm revamping my program. Everybody knows that. I've been doing a lot of research and investigation and talking to people like you and talking to the tech experts as well. And, really, really learning a lot. And I can see a path forward, not only for me, but for the agents who are in my circle.
You mentioned a word that I want to jump on, Suze, which is overwhelmed, which is so easy to feel, both with constant change and with constant challenge. And let's face it, also with some of the fear that comes with that. So if we're not able to manage ourselves in the face of all of that overwhelming, sometimes conflicting, high emotional, then we're not going to be able to serve ourselves or other people. So fundamentally, it still comes back to who am I being with myself and others in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, and this moment. And happily, there really are skills to learn that can make a difference with that. And some of them you all are familiar with. This and what I'm doing with Change Your Questions is not separate from, but it's really connected with a lot of the wonderful things that we are learning about breathing practices, about mindfulness, about managing our emotions, about emotional intelligence. And what's really cool for me is that the choice map, which we're going to get to in a minute, provides a way to understand and also to become skillful with ourselves, with all of those things that I just described to you. So what question thinking means, and I'll just give you it means that we think with questions. It's that simple. And I'm going to illustrate that to you on the choice map in just a few minutes. What that provides for us, that understanding, is if we know that we think with questions, that we know to look for or listen for the questions we're asking ourselves, if we know how to assess those questions for whether they're going to help us or hurt us, and if they're not questions that are going to help us, how do we change that question from something that hurts to something that helps? Then you've got a way of thinking and a skill that you can practice and get better at, and that will serve you and people around you for the rest of your lives. So what's really thrilling for me is that this work that I've developed helps support people doing that. And the two words that are most often used are practical and profound, which I think goes, Suze, with what you said about quantum change. I mean, if it's not practical, if it's not easy, if it's not available and accessible, I mean, let's be truthful. Who's going to do it, really?
But well, it's interesting. I'm just going to jump in on the quantum change because, okay, I'm really impatient, right? I mean, everybody knows that I'm pretty persistent, impatient, and pain in the butt. And, this idea of like, oh, change over time, like small baby steps. I'm like, nah. And when I was able to take Marilee's work and make literally a 180-degree change instantaneously, I was like, this is super cool. This can't be real, right? This can't be real. This can't be sustainable. And and then it was. And then obviously I was working with my coach mentor, and I was working with other people, and they were experiencing a really similar thing. And it's something that I've been able to bring to my coaching clients and to some of my courses and classes and groups over the last 12, 13 years, is an invitation to experience quantum change. It doesn't seem like it's available to everybody because it's a belief. Like, obviously everybody has the capacity for that kind of monumental and foundational fast change, but our beliefs get in the way. But for a lot of people, it's available. And so if we can truly open up to this curious mindset that Marilee is going to help us find, this kind of quantum change is there and it is available. Thanks, Marilee.
And you know what's really great about what you just said is that I think we ought to look at the possibility of quantum change, not in the abstract, but what's real for you. And so what I'm curious about is getting to know you a little bit, and particularly I'm wanting to understand some of the challenges you're experiencing. So I'm going to ask you to think about 1 to 3 challenges as a realtor that you have, and pop that into chat. And then I'll be able to refer back to that when we talk about the choice map and mindsets. So just give you a few moments here to start populating chat. And I think either Suze or Sam is going to.
Yeah, Sam will gather them. Just so you guys know, we're not going to share the chat with anybody. We may share part of the recording here and there, but the chat is private, so to the group. So it'd be really great to hear what you guys are experiencing. I know a bit because I talk to a lot of you a lot of the time, but let's hear it from those who I don't get to work with sometimes, and also putting it a fresh take on it for Marilee. So uncertainty, confused clients, consistency.
Okay, and then I'm going to take notes because it matters to me to understand what your challenges are and how this work could be helpful. So
are you able to read the
change?
Yeah, perfect.
I read uncertainty, confusion I saw. Okay, what else?
It runs out of questions. I hear you, Marion.
Frustrating. Wait a minute. Frustrating. Clients who don't buy right away on your schedule. You didn't say it like that, but I think that's what you meant. Anxiety about the future.
Yeah, so I think what Adrian's getting at there, Marilyn or Marilee, is we're seeing another change in the market right now here. As we're speaking, we're seeing a market that's changing more to a buyer's market, and so we're having to deliver unpopular news to our seller clients about pricing, and that's a hard thing to do when we've already had some significant depreciation in the market. That's what they're touching on there.
Oh, I just missed one.
Yeah, anxiety, bad news, seller resistance, motivating clients, getting buyers to buy. That's not too much supply, keeping up with AI.
Yeah, and I also saw one dealing with clients who are looking at houses that really are above what they can afford, but they do it anyway. I mean, I'm not going to answer these or respond to them right now, but that one just was not one that I would ever have thought of, first of all. And secondly, it strikes me that one of the ways that you all can deal with that is by learning how to ask more learner questions up front. So that, and also in establishing the relationship with people up front where you can be real with each other. So that they'll trust you when you say something that is a little bit challenging to them. Because as Suze just said, you are going to have to say things that are challenging to them, more likely than not. So how do you stay in relationship with people? It's a little bit similar to when I've done some work in the financial services world, where they have to deal with markets and money going up and down and the fear of clients leaving them. And what we always worked on is, what kind of relationship do you have with your clients such that when things get difficult, they'll stay with you rather than go someplace else, because they trust you and they know that over the long term, they're going to do better with you than anybody else. And I just think that's really an important point.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add in there as the real estate voice here, being real with each other, being real with your clients. Guys, there's no other way right now. There's no other way, right? If you're using scripts, you're using anything that's bottled up, use anything that's making assumptions, use any of that stuff that we've learned over the years, you're not going to be able to build that trust that's essential to help people make decisions in this tough market. So, okay, I'm gonna, Marilee, let's go to the choice map. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do now. And thank you so much for what you just shared, because that's very helpful to me. Now, I know some of you have seen this because you've read the book. Some of you have not seen it. And so I'd like you to take a quick look at it and just think about what pops out at you, what stands out for you in the choice map. So I'll not speak for a few moments. I know that there's a lot on there. Trust me, I tried to make it simpler, but there is so much information that I think is really necessary. And one of the things I love about the choice map is people find it very accessible, even though there's a lot on there. And I've literally had people do a quantum change from never having known anything about my work. And I'll show them the choice map. I even do it in the grocery store. I'm sort of embarrassed to say, but I have. And I had somebody once when, late at night when I'm at the checkout counter and I'm bantering with and I'll show it. If it seems like somebody who would enjoy growing and learning, or as a thank you, I'll give them the choice map. And I've had people look at it and drop it and go, oh my God, that's my life. Oh my God, this is about how I can change. Oh my gosh, this is everything. And those are literally comments that people make to me. Nevertheless, I'm going to describe it just slightly for you. You see that it's a map about mindsets, and that we all have two mindsets, what I call judger mindset and learner mindset. And when something occurs, which is a moment by moment by moment phenomenon, then typically we either go learner or we go judger. And it's instantaneous, particularly the judger part. And I have to say, one of the ways that I came up with this is I was watching myself a lot while I was struggling with a lot of things. And I realized that a lot of what I was struggling with came from what I now call judger mindset. And it's never going to go away. We always will have judger. In fact, it's neurologically hardwired into us. And so is being negative sometimes hardwired into us. But the very fact that we can choose to change by recognizing judger and getting on the switching lane and going up to what you see is the learner mindset path. That's the path that goes uphill to the mountains, to the sun, to that billboard that says thoughtful choices, solution-oriented, win-win relating. Man, as a realtor, if you're not doing win-win relating, then it is not going to go well. You can also see that there are questions in the thought bubbles above the figures' heads. Those questions are very different on the judger path and on the learner path. And the questions are in first person singular, which is what I call question thinking. So the choice map illustrates the mindsets that we have, learner and judger. All of us have them, always will. It illustrates how we can switch from judger to learner. It illustrates what happens if we don't. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see the judger pit. I have to tell you, I personally have gotten very muddy in the judger pit. But what helps me enormously is if I can say to myself, am I in judger right now? It helps to separate me from judger so that I can be a witness rather than a victim to the mindset. And then if I can say, am I in judger? And the answer, by the way, you have to ask that non-judgmentally, which is the challenging thing. If I can say, yes, I am in judger, that's the truth, then I can ask myself switching questions like, is this what I want to think or feel? Is this what I want to do or not do? How else can I think about this? I just see somebody went, wow, this is already so helpful. I'm so glad that you're having that experience. And this happens over and over and over again. So I want to give you a quick experience of mindsets. Then I'm going to talk about switching and how this relates not just to the questions we ask ourselves, but of course, the way that we communicate with others has to do with what mindset we're in when we're communicating with them. So we're going to do a very quick experience. And I'll tell you, this is one I've done hundreds of times with many thousands of people all over the world. And I can make a prediction that you're going to be very similar to them. We shall see. So all I'm going to do is recite 2 sets of questions, and all you're going to do is notice how those questions impact you. That's it. Just notice. So you'll be noticing your breathing, your thoughts, your posture, your level of stress. Are your shoulders up or down? What thoughts you're having, maybe your facial expression, and it's going to go very quickly. So here is the first set of questions. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with those other people? Why is everybody so frustrating and clueless? Why don't things ever work out for me? Why bother? Now, if we had more time, I would have you put in chat what you're experiencing, but I'm just going to tell you what I've heard so many times, and I'd like you to note to yourself if what I say is true for you, any of it. So when I say to people, how do judger questions impact you? Because these are judger questions, of course. People will say, oh, I stopped breathing, or I got really anxious, or I got depressed, or I wanted to leave the room, or I felt despairing, or I felt frustrated or confused. And those are very typical things that people say. And just note to yourself if any of those is true for you. And also note, so interesting that the questions were content free. I don't know you, obviously, but it's the structure of the question and the mindset of the question that has such a profound, actually physiological and also psychological effect on us. And if we do that over and over and over, we're just digging ourselves deeper and deeper. And how do I know this? Because I know it from myself, and I know it from so many people that I've worked with and so many readers who write to let me know that. So I'd like you to take a nice deep breath through your nose, exhale well and fully, and prepare yourself to listen to a second set of questions. These will be learner mindset questions, no surprise. And there'll be questions like, what just happened? What do I want? What are my goals? What can I learn from this person or this situation, even if I don't like it? What is there to appreciate about the person or people that I'm talking about? What are some ways that those people might be thinking, feeling, and reacting? How can I understand them any better? How can I show them that I'm trustworthy and I care about them? And then, of course, what's possible? Now, I gave you a few beats of silence so you could notice what's happening in your body and notice whether, first of all, those questions, the second set of questions, impacted you differently than the first. More than likely, the answer will be yes. And here are some of the things that people say when I ask them, what do you experience from learner? And they'll say, oh, I started to breathe better. I sat up straighter. I noticed I could listen better. I felt more proactive and optimistic. I felt engaged and looking forward to the future. I really started to consider what's possible, and that changes everything. So note for yourself if any of those things I just said about learner mindset are true, and then transport yourself for a moment to imagine that you're with a colleague or a client, or as I said, it works in your personal life. It could be a spouse or a child, but this is a professional webinar. So with the client, and from which mindset do you think people will want you to operate? Will they enjoy you more, trust you more, engage with you more, give you more information when you're in learner or when you're in judger? Those, by the way, are rhetorical questions because when we're in judger, oftentimes people don't even want to be around us, and we end up looking either depressed because, I didn't mention this earlier, when we do judger, we do it to ourselves, which ends up losing self-confidence, elevating self-doubt, or we are more externally oriented and can be judgmental to others, as Suze was describing her family. She learned it well, and fortunately you unlearned it well, Suze. I mean, that's the whole thing, that you can make a quantum change by standing back, noticing what mindset you're in, noticing if it's helping, shifting or switching if it's not. And I do want to tell you a funny story about switching. And I don't think, Suze, I told you this story, but it's literally a dream that I had. And in this dream, believe it or not, in the dream, I'm sitting with Brad Pitt and we're talking about the choice map.
I love it.
You can imagine how surprised I was when I woke up. So in the dream, we're looking at, here's the choice map, and we're looking at it together. And then he says to me, Brad Pitt in my dream says to me, can you teach me how to switch? In my dream.
Yeah.
And what I said to him in the dream was, you already know how. What I can teach you is how to do it more predictably, more quickly, and more easily. And then I woke up. But I was thrilled with the dream. And I was especially thrilled because when I'm talking to people about this work, I also know that you already know how, because you've done it many times in your life, but you didn't realize what you were doing. It happened kind of accidentally or naturally, but something that happens accidentally and naturally does not turn into a predictable skill that you can call on when you need it. And that's what this is about, is developing the skill and the confidence with the skill to know that if you just keep cultivating your learner mindset over and over and over again, that it will groove in, that you will develop that habit. Will you ever be perfect at it? Absolutely not. I experience judger on a daily basis. as a matter of fact. It doesn't scare me anymore. I don't believe it as much anymore. There's a great saying, don't believe everything you think. And when I can identify judger and say, oh, that's judger speaking. That's not me. That's not who I am. If I can separate myself from judger and then develop the habit, the skill and the habit of over and over, I think what you'll find is what Suze found, which is, geez, people started liking me more. I started liking other people more. What a revelation. What a possibility. What a change for who to be and how to relate now and in the future.
Oh, I got to break in. It's so good. Default, what Marilee's talking about, that we will be judger. And one of the things that struck me when I first studied her work was that don't judge the judger, you're going to be judger. We will on occasion default to a judger mindset. We all know this. Here's the thing, when the world gets more challenging, when real estate commissions are thinner, when AI is knocking, when the world gets more challenging, we're more likely to default to judger, and the choice between judger and learner becomes a little bit more difficult, and we need to be significantly more conscious about that choice. Marilee, can you speak to that a bit? Because I know this is something that you know about, this defaulting to judger.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Suze, what that reminds me of is an acronym that we use in our courses a lot. And we actually take it from the 12-step program, and it's HALT, H-A-L-T, and it stands for don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Because if you do, you're creating the conditions for relapsing or regressing. And I would say that to everybody, that taking care of ourselves, recognizing that it's important to have good relationships, to not be angry, not be lonely, not be tired, feed ourselves well. That doesn't sound like it's a direct recipe for success as a professional, as a salesperson, because whether or not you like the term, I personally like it and don't like it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. That when I'm taking care of myself, I'm being learner with myself. I'm being careful with myself. And then I have somebody to bring to relationships and situations who can really, truly embrace the other person, create a good relationship with them, become trusted, develop a loyalty to them. And I know that that will make a difference in terms of referrals, and even people who will come back years later and say, it was such a great experience with you before. I want you again.
So I'm going to take that one step further. I'm going to really apply this. So yes, referrals, yes, repeat business. But honestly, guys, if you're talking to someone and you're not building that trust and that rapport and that connection, if they don't think you're really amazing, they're not even going to tell you the stuff you need to know to find out if they're moving. And people say to me, I have my conversations, but nobody's moving. I'm like, I know that they're just not connecting with that human being in a meaningful way, because people won't tell you they're moving if they don't trust you. And then if you do find someone who's moving, the idea that they're going to choose you to represent them at this very scary time also comes from the learner mindset. And then if you get them to hire you, how they make decisions through the process, the negotiations about how they're going to offer their house up for sale at what price, and what they're going to do in an offer situation, all comes back to the same thing. I know this. I'm 40 years in the business. I'm gonna move us along, Marilee, because we're running out of time, and I wanted to have time for Q&A. I just one last thing. One of the words it's been coming at me a lot with all of the research I've been doing. With the emerging world and AI and technology and what is the skill stack that we need to be able to thrive in the new era? The word curiosity keeps coming up. Curiosity, curiosity, curiosity. And, you know, obviously there's a link here. Could you just speak briefly about the connection
Oh,
between curiosity and learner for
I
us?
would love to.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, we all are born curious, and curiosity is the driver of all learning and development, and make and invention and connection. If you weren't curious about your clients, you wouldn't care, you wouldn't be asking them questions. And also, curiosity is the driver of creativity and new ways of thinking, which is exactly what you need in a world that's shifting under your feet. If I look back at the challenges, you said uncertainty, confusing, clients being weird, you didn't use those words, but anxiety about the future. All of those require problem solving. They require being curious about possibility. They require looking where you weren't looking before. They require being grounded in yourself as well, and being curious about yourself, like what mindset am I in, but also curious about others. And it shows. Another word I would introduce with that, Suze, is resilience and adaptability, actually, because when you're able to say, oh, am I in judger? This is where I want to be. How can I switch? And you ask yourself a switching question, or you can do a switching strategy. It doesn't have to be a question that you're aware of, but you simply say, ah, I need to sit back and breathe. I need to get some oxygen in my brain and in my body. If we can continually bring ourselves back to that, we have the best chance of being resilient, adaptive, and all of that sparks off of curiosity and caring. And I think if you just put curiosity and caring in the formula for being a successful realtor, that you'd have home runs all over the place.
Perfect. And how fun is that? Because that's who we all want to be. There's actually a field of work emerging called adaptability quotient. That's emerging alongside the AI, because obviously we're all going to have to adapt. AI is the biggest change since electricity. It's a more significant change than the internet was. So adaptability quotient is going to be, I think, something that becomes a catchphrase over the coming months. And Marilee's tied that really nicely to curiosity, and curiosity is the learner mindset, you guys. That's what it is. I know that, because my inner language uses curiosity in exchange for learner, but I know they're the same thing. So unbelievable. I want to open up the floor though, because we only have 10 minutes left. And I really would love for people to ask questions, really anything of Marilee or me, but I think this is your chance with Marilee.
And this is what I love the most. So please give me your questions.
And yeah, so we've got one that's Natasha's come up with something, so I might address that one. In negotiation, if you know you are working with the judge or on the other side of the table, what are some questions that you can ask or strategies we can use to help? Okay, so I'm going to give it to Marilee, but I'm going to give her a little background to negotiation. So there's a lot of real estate agents who are very poorly trained, and who will arrive in a negotiation in a very aggressive, competitive manner, which it isn't collaborative and isn't really a deal-making recipe for deal-making, but there you go. There you have it. So if we turn that to, you're dealing with someone who's deeply, deeply committed to a judger mindset, and you're having to do a negotiation with them. Anything you can offer us?
Oh, did you want to finish that? Because
no, I'm gonna see what you. I mean, from a non-real estate view, what do you bring?
Well, I'm going to change it slightly, because I realize there's something really important that we haven't discussed, and that is that fear is what drives judger. And remember that your clients are often very, very fearful, for all the reasons that you are, and for lots of reasons that you won't know or can't know or don't discover because you haven't asked them enough questions, or they don't trust you enough. So when a client or client is acting in a way that feels judgmental to you, if you can bring forward not only your learner, but also your compassion for understanding that Buying and selling a home is one of the most anxiety producing things that people can do. And if you can be, you don't even have to say it, but your attitude will show. So when somebody is judger, the last thing you want to do is go judger back. Then you've lost and they've lost too. The skill here is that when other people are in judger, that you can step back, reset yourself in learner over and over and over, so you can be a resource for them. If you're in judger, you're not a resource for them. If you're reactive, you're not a resource for them. So
I'm going to interrupt here just because there's something that a lot of these people have taken negotiation courses with me. We have some language here that I think I can tie together.
good.
So they're talking about the other agent being in judger, but it's the same sort of thing. If you respond as judger, you're going to activate more judger in them, and you're going to create competition, competitive negotiation on both sides, and you're not going to get a deal done. And we want to build collaboration. We know that the only way to get deals done in this market is to the two agents to be collaborating together. And so you have to showcase learner mindset, and you have to use your collaboration tactics and strategies. And what those strategies are, if you now start to dig in and see them differently through the lens of learner judger, you'll see that the collaborative tactics that we learned in the negotiation courses are actually designed to reduce the judger mindset in the other person. So more dialogue, right? Building
and
more.
What goes with that, it's probably useful to know. I teach this work in the context of conflict negotiation too, conflict resolution. It's the same thing. If people are in judger, there's not going to be any collaboration, and there's not going to be any win-win. And frankly, there's not going to be as much in your pocketbook.
Perfect. And you guys have the skills, or you can continue to learn the skills to build that collaboration. And that's the magic right now, without a doubt. And the agents who are doing a lot of deals right now know this. They're spending an awful lot of time building that collaboration with the other agent before they're negotiating the transaction. So thanks for that, Marilee. Is there an immediate skill?
Before you go to another question, which I would love, I do want to make a comment about you, Suze.
Okay.
If you don't mind, which is, you just got me all excited when you told me about your negotiation course and what you do with that. I think that what you're doing is so forward thinking and so important in your profession that, I mean, I'm just really inspired by what you do. And I can see what a massive difference that can make for your clients and for your colleagues. And so I just appreciate that you're bringing this work into a profession where it really can make such a difference. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. It's so nice thing to say. And when I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I love you guys, the agents, but the reason I do it is for the people you serve. It's the consumers. It's the people who are buying, selling real estate that really, really motivate me to help agents be more human and more connected and more authentic and more professional and more skilled. And I keep trying to retire, and I can't do it because I love it too much. So thank you, Marilee. Next question.
You're quite welcome. What is the next question?
This is a good one. Is there an immediate skill we can learn to very quickly switch to learner from judger when we realize that we're already in the mud?
Well, actually, you've answered the question inside your question, whoever asked that question, because you will discover, if you start working the work, that the very fact of noticing you're in judger non-judgmentally is the liberating move for getting out of it. Because as soon as you notice, then you're free to ask different questions and to engage in, sometimes it's, am I in judger? What do I need right now? Oh, I need to breathe. I need to step back. I need to rethink. I need to be more compassionate with myself and others. That the mere fact of identifying judger just untangles you from judger, so that you're not going to be so much in the grip of it. And that is liberating. Then all kinds of possibilities can ensue. But without that piece, you're just going to get very, very, very muddy. And trust me, been there, done that. And it's being able to see judger. And and appreciate it, because sometimes judger is there, it is there for our survival and our protection. That doesn't mean we have to believe it all the time. So I know that sounds awfully simple. It is. But this is where it gets profound, because when you can, and that's where mindfulness comes in, because it's moment by moment by moment. And what's the good news? You already have this. We've been working together, talking together for almost an hour. If you've read the book, I recommend you reread it. You will discover that this simple move makes an enormous difference.
I'm going to cut us off because we always finish on time. I'm happy to stay a few minutes after we finish the formal presentation, but I want to make sure that we just get the final in. Marilee has donated her time today so that all of us could have this experience. If you haven't read her book, read the book. You know, what else can I say? I mean, this isn't a pitch. This book is a game changer for most people who read it. And there are other books that she's written. She also has some courses. So I'm not going to sell you guys anything today. We're just offering Marilee's stuff up. There's more information. I'm not going to go here. The courses obviously are going to be life-changing if you're interested in them. And here's how you get hold of her. Keeping the pitch nice and slow and easy and simple. inquiryinstitute.com. We are the natureofrealestate.com. We're going to bring out a whole lot of new stuff. I'm doing some keynote speaking in Toronto. I hope many of you will be there to hear me, because I'm going to be bringing forth my new stuff around curiosity in the final mile and the human connection that's essential in an AI era. I want you guys to really ask yourself this question as we leave the formal part of the presentation. Is what I'm doing getting me the results I want? So thank you all so much for coming. We will turn off the recording.
And Suze, to answer that, is what I'm doing getting the results? And if not, what new questions can I ask that can get me and others better results?
So a realignment. So thank you, my idol Marilee, for sharing this. Parting words for Marilee, and then we'll turn the recording off.
Well, actually, I just gave some parting words.
That's it. Perfect.
You're asked, but I will say, but I have to take your invitation. So remember that great results begin with great questions, and great questions begin with learner mindset. And you already know how to identify your mindset, and you have a glimmer and a new practice that you can practice for switching and strengthening the habit of learner mindset. And that will make a difference for you everywhere in your life, and also make a huge difference for your impact on your clients. And so it's been wonderful being with you. And remember the choice map. You can actually memorize it and keep asking yourself, where am I now? And that you always have the choice.